The ruins stretched across the barren landscape like bones of a forgotten world. Broken towers leaned against each other, silent and empty, while sandstorms whispered through the cracks of fallen walls. To most, this place was just another dead planet, a graveyard of a civilization that had vanished long before. But to two alien explorers, Zyril and Kevik, it was a promise of discovery. Zyril stood on a ridge of stone, gazing at the half-buried structures below. His tall frame was covered in a sleek exosuit that shimmered faintly under the pale light of the twin suns. His large eyes scanned every shadow, searching for signs of working machines or hidden doors. Kevik, shorter and bulkier, adjusted the equipment pack on his back and grumbled. "This place is empty," Kevik said. His voice carried a tone of irritation through the comms link. "Every ruin looks the same. Dust, sand, and broken metal. We should head back before another storm rises." Zyril tilted his head. "Empty places hide the best secrets. The ancients did not build these structures for nothing. There must be something below." Kevik let out a tired sigh. He respected Zyril's sharp mind, but he often felt his friend was too obsessed with mysteries. Still, he followed as Zyril slid down the ridge, moving toward what looked like the entrance to an underground passage. The heavy doors there were half buried, their surfaces covered in strange markings. The two aliens worked together, brushing away layers of sand and debris. Zyril studied the markings with growing excitement. "These symbols, they are not from any language I know. But look here, the repeated pattern. It suggests warning." Kevik frowned. "Warning? Then maybe we should leave it shut." But Zyril shook his head, his eyes shining with curiosity. Or it could mean protection. Something valuable locked away. This could be what we have searched for. Reluctantly, Kevik helped him set up the portable power tool. Sparks flew as the device cut into the ancient locking mechanism. With a deep groan, the heavy doors slid open, releasing a breath of cold air that smelled of age and stillness. The passage beyond descended into darkness. Zyril activated the light on his wrist, and beams of white illuminated the corridor. The walls were smooth, untouched by time, and strange panels glowed faintly as if the power source still functioned after countless years. "See?" Zyril said with quiet triumph. "The ancients left something alive down here." They moved cautiously, step by step, their lights cutting through the shadows. The corridor led them to a vast chamber, and both explorers froze as the sight unfolded before them. The room was filled with rows of tall, glass-like pods, stretching farther than their lights could reach. Each pod glowed softly with a pale blue light. Inside, dark shapes rested still and silent. Kevik's throat tightened. What are these?" Zyril approached one of the pods, wiping away the thin layer of frost on the surface. His heart raced as he saw the figure inside, a being unlike any he had seen before. The creature had smooth skin, hair on its head, and a strong build. Its eyes were closed, its body frozen in perfect stillness. "They are not machines," Zyril whispered. "They are living beings. Or they were once." Kevik's pulse quickened. "This is wrong. We should not be here. What if they are dangerous?" Zyril studied the panel at the base of the pod. Strange symbols flickered across it, and he traced them with his fingers. "Cryo-sleep," he murmured, interpreting the meaning through fragments of alien data he recognized. "These beings are not dead. They are sleeping, preserved." Kevik stepped back, his voice sharp with fear. "Then we must leave them. We don't know what they are or why they were locked away. This is not treasure, Zyril, this is a trap." But Zyril could not look away. His mind spun with questions. Who were these beings? Why had they been hidden here? Were they the builders of this world, or refugees from another? His fingers hovered over the glowing controls, and temptation burned inside him. "Just one," he whispered. "If we open just one pod, we will know the truth." Kevik grabbed his arm. "Are you out of your mind? You don't know what will happen if you touch that panel." Zyril looked into his companion's eyes. "Knowledge is worth risk. We came here to discover, not to walk away from history." Before Kevik could stop him, Zyril pressed the sequence on the panel. A deep hum filled the chamber, and the pod lights flickered. Frost began to melt from the glass as the system awakened. Steam hissed from hidden vents, and the figure inside stirred. Kevik's heart pounded in panic. "You fool. You've started it." The being's chest rose with a slow, heavy breath. Fingers twitched, eyelids fluttered, and for the first time in untold centuries a human opened his eyes. The light of the chamber reflected in those eyes, sharp, clear, and filled with confusion. The human's gaze darted from the glass to the figures outside. He saw the two aliens staring back at him and his lips moved, trying to form words through a dry throat. Xyril stepped closer, awe and fear battling inside him. The human's presence radiated something he could not describe. An energy, a weight of history and strength. The pod doors unlocked with a heavy click, and slowly they opened. Cold air spilled out and the human stumbled forward, his body weak from long sleep but alive. His voice cracked as he spoke in a language neither alien could fully understand. Kevik took a step back, his instincts screaming to run. But Xyril, though trembling, extended a hand in greeting. The human looked at him for a long moment. Then with effort he stood straighter, his eyes narrowing as he took in the chamber full of sleeping figures. Behind him, countless more pods waited, their occupants preserved in silence. Xyril's voice shook as he spoke to Kevik. "Do you see? This is not just one being. There are thousands, perhaps tens of thousands." Kevik swallowed hard, his fear turning into dread. "And you have awakened them. We have no idea what they are capable of." The human turned his gaze back to the two aliens. His expression was hard to read, part confusion, part determination. Slowly he raised his hand, not in attack but in a gesture of recognition. The silence of the chamber deepened. Something ancient had been broken. A line had been crossed. In that moment Xyril understood. This was no treasure vault. It was no grave, it was a beginning. The silence of the underground chamber pressed against the ears of Xyril and Kevik. Both aliens stood frozen, their large eyes fixed on the human who had stepped out of the pod. The air was cold, filled with the faint hiss of vents releasing the last of the cryogas. The man's chest rose and fell in uneven breaths, his body trembling from weakness, but his eyes burned with a light that seemed far older than the ruins around them. The human tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. His lips formed sounds, rough and broken, as though every word was being dragged out of a deep cavern inside him. The language meant nothing to Xyril and Kevik, but the tone carried meaning, confusion, demand, and a quiet strength. Kevik tightened his grip on the tool at his belt. "Xyril," he whispered urgently through the comm. "We must leave. Now, before the others wake." But Xyril could not look away. His mind was alive with questions. The alien scientist in him refused to turn his back on this discovery. He stepped forward slowly, raising his three-fingered hand in what he hoped was a gesture of peace. The human's eyes followed the movement. For a moment there was only silence between them. Then the man raised his own hand, copying the gesture. The meaning was clear. He was alive, and he understood they were not here to kill him. The pod beside the first one gave a low hum. Lights flickered along its edges, and frost began to melt across its glass surface. Kevik's heart jumped. "Another one!" "Xyril, what have you done?" "The system is waking them all." Xyril turned sharply, scanning the panels. "No, it is selective. Only a few. Perhaps the system is responding to the presence of the awakened one." As if to confirm his words, the second pod opened with a hiss, and another human stepped out. This one was taller, her hair falling in damp strands across her face. She gasped for breath, clutching her chest before steadying herself against the pod. Her sharp eyes moved quickly from the room to the two aliens and then to the man who had awakened before her. The first human reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. His expression carried recognition. They spoke briefly in their strange tongue, their words flowing with a rhythm that suggested deep familiarity. Kevik backed away, fear tightening his throat. They know each other. They are not confused like we thought. They remember. Xyril's voice trembled, though not with fear, with excitement. Of course they remember. Cryo-sleep does not erase the mind. These beings, they are survivors, carriers of a history we do not yet know. The woman looked at Xyril, her gaze sharp and questioning. She said something in her language, pointing at the rows of pods around them. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, commanding, as though she were used to giving orders. The man responded in calm tones, trying to steady her. "They are leaders," Xyril whispered. "Even half dead from long sleep, they command each other with authority." Kevik pulled at Xyril's arm. "Leaders of what? You cannot know if they were kings or soldiers or destroyers. Stop admiring them. We must leave before the rest awaken." But it was too late. Across the chamber, more pods flickered with light. A ripple of awakening spread like a quiet wave, moving from one row to another. Not all stirred, but enough to change the stillness into uneasy movement. Steam hissed, Glass doors cracked open and shapes shifted inside. One by one, more humans stepped out. Some staggered and fell, their legs too weak to hold them. Others clung to their neighbors for balance. Voices filled the chamber now. Confused shouts, hoarse calls, whispered names. The air, once cold and empty, now throbbed with life. The first man, the one Zyril had awakened, tried to calm them. He raised his voice, calling out in clear, steady words. His hands moved in gestures of reassurance, pointing to the aliens, to the pods, to the walls of the chamber. Some of the humans quieted, listening, but others looked at Zyril and Kevik with suspicion, their eyes narrowing. "They think we did this," Kevik muttered nervously. "They think we control their prison," Zyril frowned. "It is possible, but look at them. They are not panicking as much as they should. They are adapting." The tall woman now stood straighter, her strength returning quickly. She moved to the first man's side, speaking firmly to the growing group. He nodded, answering her, and then turned toward the aliens. Slowly, carefully, he approached them. Kevik raised his weapon, his hands shaking. "Stay back!" The human stopped, lifting both hands to show he carried nothing. His expression was calm, though his eyes gleamed with sharp intelligence. He spoke again, this time slower, as if trying to bridge the distance between them. Zyril lowered his hand gently onto Kevik's weapon, pushing it down. "Do you see? He is trying to talk to us. He does not wish to fight." Kevik's jaw tightened, but he obeyed. The man pointed at himself. "Elias," he said. Then he repeated the word louder. "Elias." Zyril's ears twitched. "Elias. That must be his name." The woman stepped forward, placing her hand on her chest. "Mara," she said clearly. Zyril nodded, repeating the sounds carefully. "Mara." The humans exchanged glances, surprised but not displeased. They pointed at Zyril and Kevik now, their eyes expectant. Zyril understood. He pointed to himself. Zyril, then to his companion. "Kevik!" The humans repeated the names, their strange tongues shaping the sounds awkwardly but with effort. A connection had been made, fragile but real. For the first time, Kevik's fear softened into wonder. "They learn quickly," he admitted. "Even now they try to bridge the gap, but the moment of quiet understanding was broken by a sudden alarm. Somewhere deep in the chamber, a low siren began to echo. Red lights flashed along the walls, and mechanical shutters started to close over some of the pods. The humans reacted at once, their voices rising in concern. Elias shouted orders, and several of them rushed to the closing pods, trying to stop the machines. Mara turned sharply toward Zyril and Kevik, her eyes blazing with suspicion. She spoke quickly, pointing at the alarms, then at the aliens. Kevik raised his hands helplessly. "She thinks we did this." Zyril shook his head. "No, the system is reacting on its own. Perhaps it senses intruders. Perhaps it was programmed to limit how many could awaken at once." The sirens grew louder, and heavy doors began to seal parts of the chamber. Elias grabbed a piece of fallen metal, wedging it into one of the shutters to keep it open. His body shook with weakness, but his determination was unbroken. Others followed his lead, working together without hesitation as though their unity was a natural instinct. Zyril watched with wide eyes. Even after centuries of sleep, even without weapons or machines, these humans moved as one. They did not collapse in chaos. They organized. They fought not each other, but the problem before them. Kevik whispered in awe. "They are not just survivors. They are fighters." Finally, the alarms dimmed, leaving the chamber tense but quieter. Only a small group of humans remained awake, perhaps 20 in all. The rest of the pod stayed sealed, their lights steady but dormant. Elias, sweat shining on his brow, turned back to the aliens. He raised his hand again, palm open, and spoke with effort. The word was unfamiliar, but the meaning was clear. He was asking for help. Zyril felt his throat tighten. For so long, his people had wandered the ruins of dead civilizations, finding only silence. But here, in this buried vault, he had awakened something that lived, something that remembered. He nodded slowly, pressing his hand to his chest. "Yes," he whispered, though Elias could not understand the words. "We will help." Kevik looked at him in disbelief. "You cannot mean that. If we help them, we tie our fate to theirs. What if they are dangerous?" Zyril's gaze remained fixed on Elias and Mara. "What if they are the key to everything we have been searching for?" The humans gathered close, watching, waiting. Between them and the two aliens stood the weight of history. The chamber that had slept for centuries was no longer silent. Humanity had begun to awaken, and the galaxy, though it did not yet know it, was about to change forever. The chamber that had once been silent now breathed with life. 20 humans moved slowly among the rows of sealed pods, their weak bodies recovering, their voices filling the cold air. Some sat against the walls, catching their breath. Others checked on one another, whispering words of comfort in their strange tongue. Though they were fragile from long sleep, there was a spark in their eyes, a quiet fire that Xyril could not ignore. Xyril stood near the edge of the chamber, recording every detail on his wrist device. The humans fascinated him, their gestures, their quick recovery, the way they worked together even without full strength. He wanted to understand them, to learn their history. Kevik, however, stayed close to the exit, his nerves on edge. His wide eyes darted from one human to another, and his hand never left the tool strapped to his belt. "This is dangerous," Kevik muttered through the comm. "They outnumber us now. Even weak, they could overpower us." "They will not," Xyril replied quietly. His gaze lingered on Elias, the first man to awaken. "Look how they listen to him. He holds them together. He does not speak with fear. He speaks with purpose." Elias was indeed speaking. He stood among the humans, his voice steady though still rough from sleep. He pointed at the pods, then at the aliens, then at the sealed doors of the chamber. The others nodded, understanding him. Mara stood beside him, her sharp eyes scanning the room. When Elias paused, she continued, her tone firm and commanding. Even without knowing the words, Xyril could feel the rhythm of leadership between them, calm strength and clear direction. Then Elias turned to Xyril and Kevik. He stepped forward, slowly, carefully. His hands were open, showing no threat. He pointed again at the sealed doors, then at himself and his people. His words were steady, filled with intent. "He wants to leave this place," Xyril guessed aloud. Kevik's jaw tightened. "Then he is a fool. Outside lies a dead world. And worse, if others discover what we have done, if they learn we woke these beings, we will be punished." Before Xyril could reply, his comm crackled with a sharp signal. It was their ship orbiting above the planet. A nervous voice filled his ear. "Explorers, respond. We detect an energy surge from your location. What is happening down there?" Xyril hesitated. Should he tell the truth? Should he admit that they had opened the wrong vault and awakened a species long forgotten? Kevik answered first, his tone clipped. "We discovered a functioning facility. Systems are unstable. We request immediate extraction." The voice on the comm grew alarmed. "Unstable systems? You triggered a signal. The Empire will detect this soon. Other factions may already be listening. Finish your survey and prepare to leave." Xyril's stomach tightened. If the Empire discovered humans before he could learn more, the beings might be captured, studied, or destroyed. He lowered his voice. "Kevik, if we leave now, they will not survive. Look at them, they are weak. They need guidance, they need allies." "They are not our responsibility," Kevik snapped. "We came for salvage, not guardianship." But as Kevik spoke, Mara approached. She pointed at the aliens' gear, then at the sealed doors. Her eyes narrowed with demand. She wanted them to open the path. Xyril studied the panel beside the exit. The old symbols pulsed faintly, awaiting a command. With some adjustments, his wrist device could override the locks. He looked back at Elias, who now stood beside Mara, watching with calm determination. "We cannot deny them," Xyril whispered. Kevik groaned, his frustration rising. "You are letting your curiosity blind you. If we open that door, we lead them into a galaxy that will not welcome them." But Xyril was already moving. His fingers danced over the panel and the doors groaned as their ancient seals unlocked. Cold air swept into the chamber as the path beyond revealed itself. Another long corridor leading upward. The humans stirred with excitement, their voices rising in relief. Elias nodded once to Xyril, a gesture of thanks that needed no words. The group began their slow march through the corridor, leaning on each other for support. Elias and Mara stayed at the front, guiding the way. Xyril walked beside them, scanning the strange machines lining the walls. Kevik followed reluctantly at the rear, his eyes flicking nervously to every shadow. The corridor stretched for what felt like endless steps. At last, a faint glow appeared ahead, sunlight spilling through a cracked ceiling. The humans gasped softly, their faces lifting toward the light as though it were a long-lost friend. For the first time in centuries, they felt the warmth of suns on their skin. But the world outside was not kind. The surface was dry and broken, its cities reduced to ruins, its sky stained with dust. The humans stepped out slowly, their feet crunching on the cracked ground. They looked around with awe, sorrow, and determination. Elias knelt, running his hand through the sand. Mara's eyes swept the horizon, sharp and calculating. The others gathered close, whispering among themselves. Cyril watched them carefully. "They grieve for what is lost," he murmured. "But they do not collapse. They stand. They endure." Kevik gave a bitter laugh. "Endure for what?" "This world is dead. They have no place here." Before Ziral could reply, the comm on his wrist crackled again. The ship above had detected incoming signals. "Warning," the voice said urgently. "Multiple vessels are converging on your location. Unknown origin. They may have traced the energy surge. You must leave immediately." Kevik's face drained of color.
"Do you hear that?"
"Others are coming. If they see these humans, they will take them, or worse." Elias noticed the sudden tension. He stepped toward Ziral, pointing at the sky, then at the aliens, his brows furrowed. Mara followed, her voice sharp, questioning. They sensed danger even without understanding the words. Cyril swallowed hard. He had to make a choice. "They must know," he whispered to Kevik. "If hostile ships arrive, the humans must be ready." "Ready?" Kevik hissed. "They have no weapons, no defenses." "They are half awake from centuries of sleep." But as they argued, Elias moved among his people. He spoke firmly, his voice carrying strength. The humans straightened, listening closely. Though weak, they gathered scraps of metal, broken rods, anything that could serve as a weapon. Their unity was frighteningly quick, their instincts sharp. Zyral's heart pounded. These were not helpless relics. These were survivors of something great, and their will to live had not faded with time. On the horizon, faint glimmers of metal broke through the dusty air. Ships descending, their engines burning against the sky. Mara pointed at them, then at Elias, her expression fierce. Elias nodded, gripping his makeshift weapon tighter. Kevik's voice cracked. "We must go. If we stay, we will be caught between them and the humans," but Ziral shook his head. His gaze locked on Elias and Mara, their people standing firm despite exhaustion. "No," he said softly. "This is their awakening. We cannot run from it. We must see it through." The humans lifted their eyes to the descending ships, their jaws set, their bodies ready. Their first test in this new age had come sooner than anyone expected. And Ziral knew with a shiver of awe and fear that the galaxy was about to witness the return of a species it had long forgotten. The dusty sky above the ruins shimmered with approaching ships, their metal hulls glinting faintly under the weak light of the twin suns. The humans, though half awake from centuries of cryo-sleep, had formed a line along the cracked ground. Elias and Mara stood at the forefront, their bodies tense, eyes sharp as if they were born to lead. Behind them, the others gathered whatever scraps of metal and broken rods they could find, improvising weapons with astonishing speed. Zyral's hand trembled slightly as he recorded the scene. He had seen alien species face danger before, but nothing prepared him for this display. These humans, fragile yet determined, were organizing in moments what others might have taken hours to plan. Kevik shifted nervously behind him. "They are going to die," he muttered. "They are barely awake. They have nothing against those ships." "Nothing." Ziral shook his head. "Do not underestimate them. I've seen the spark in their eyes. That spark is not fear, it is strategy." The first of the ships landed with a harsh hiss, shaking the ground beneath them. Airlocks opened and armored figures began to descend. Their suits were sleek, advanced, and heavily armed. These aliens did not pause. They moved with confidence, believing they were facing weak prey. Elias signaled to his people. Though their weapons were primitive, their unity was powerful. Humans ran forward, blocking choke points and using the terrain to their advantage. Broken walls, pillars, and trenches became shields and obstacles. Every movement was purposeful. Every human knew instinctively how to defend their companions. The armored aliens paused briefly, confused by the humans' organized resistance. They expected chaos, not a structured line of defense. Their sensors detected no conventional weapons, yet the humans moved with speed, timing, and coordination that felt unnatural to the intruders. Kevik's jaw dropped. "I've never seen anything like this. How can they fight like this without proper training?" Ziral replied quietly, awe in his voice. "Humans have survived against impossible odds before. Their instincts are honed by necessity. Even centuries in sleep cannot erase that. The first clash came suddenly. One human swung a reinforced metal rod, striking a mechanical leg of the alien soldier, causing it to stumble. Others followed, pushing, tripping, and distracting the invaders. They had no advanced weapons, but their movement was precise, their focus unshakable. Elias spotted an armored alien advancing toward Mara. With a burst of speed, he grabbed a long metal pipe and swung it, forcing the alien back. Mara rolled aside and kicked debris into the intruder's path. The humans worked together seamlessly, improvising tactics that Zyril could barely comprehend. The armored aliens regrouped, trying to encircle the humans, but the humans had already spread across the ruins, using cover in narrow paths. Mara directed small groups to block passages while Elias stayed at the center, coordinating the defense. Their voices rose in a strange rhythmic language and the humans moved as one. Zyril whispered to Kevik, "Even in weakness they are stronger than we thought. They adapt. They learn instantly." Kevik's face was pale. "It doesn't make sense. How can beings so fragile move so effectively?" They are incredible." The battle continued, each side testing the other. The humans' lack of firepower was made up by strategy and courage. They exploited every weakness in the alien armor, every moment of hesitation, every predictable movement. They moved faster than the invaders expected, striking with precision, then retreating to regroup. Elias saw a group of humans cornered by 2 armored soldiers. Without hesitation, he rushed forward, grabbing a heavy rod and charging. Mara followed with another, and together they struck in unison, using weight and surprise to topple the aliens. The humans rallied, inspired by the fearless actions of their leaders. Zyril felt a shiver run down his spine. This was not mere survival. This was proof that humanity, though long forgotten, still carried the will to overcome, the intelligence to adapt, and the courage to stand against superior forces. The battle raged on. The aliens underestimated the humans' ability to communicate under pressure, to anticipate attacks, and to use their environment effectively. Broken walls became shields, fallen beams became battering tools, and the ruins themselves seemed to bend to the humans' will. Elias paused for a moment, breathing heavily, his eyes scanning the battlefield. He saw the humans' resolve, their fear replaced by determination. Mara ran to his side, her voice sharp but steady, pointing to an armored alien trying to flank them. Together they moved swiftly, cutting off the enemy's path. One alien fired a small energy weapon, its beam hitting the ground near a human. The human dove aside, grabbing a jagged piece of metal and striking back at the alien, catching it off guard. Another alien approached from behind, but Elias spun and knocked it down with a heavy rod. The human's improvisation and quick thinking were unmatched. Zyril leaned close to Kevik, his voice low but filled with awe. "Do you see now? They are not just survivors. They are warriors. Even unarmed, they fight with intelligence and courage that exceeds expectation." Kevik swallowed hard, unable to argue. Every movement of the humans reinforced Zyril's words. They fought as a single entity, each action supporting the others, each decision thought out. The aliens had superior technology, but the humans had ingenuity, courage, and unity, things the machines could not counter. Finally, the invaders hesitated, realizing they had underestimated their opponents. Their formations broke, their timing faltered. The humans pressed the advantage, driving the armored aliens back toward their ships. Elias and Mara moved at the center, coordinating every action, their leadership undeniable. Zyril's chest swelled with admiration. "They are extraordinary. They are humanity." Kevik shook his head, disbelief still in his eyes. "I cannot believe it. I never imagined a species could rise again after centuries of sleep. And yet, they have done it." As the last alien stumbled back toward its ship, the humans regrouped, breathing heavily but standing tall. Their victory was not complete, but they had proven themselves. They were not relics of a forgotten world. They were alive, aware, and capable of facing the dangers of the galaxy. Elias looked over his people, pride and determination in his gaze. Mara stood beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon for any remaining threats. The humans had awakened, not just from sleep, but from the fear of being forgotten. They had faced impossible odds and survived, showing that their strength was not in weapons alone, but in courage, unity, and quick thinking. Cyril turned to Kevik, his voice quiet, but full of meaning. We have underestimated them for too long. Humanity is not weak. They are a force to be reckoned with. Kevik nodded slowly, still pale but awed. You're right, they are remarkable. I never thought I would see this. The humans, despite exhaustion, gathered near the vault's entrance. Elias looked at Cyril and Kevik, then at the sky, as if considering the vast galaxy that awaited them. Mara stepped forward, her voice firm and commanding. Though they were newly awake, their resolve was clear. They would not remain hidden. They would rise. Cyril watched them carefully, recording every detail, knowing that what had just occurred would change the balance of power in the galaxy. These humans, long forgotten, had faced superior forces with nothing but their wits, courage, and unity, and they had prevailed. The battle was over, but the war for survival and recognition had only just begun. The humans had proven themselves. They were awake, aware, and ready to reclaim their place among the stars. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy would feel the full force of humanity once more. The sky above the ruined planet was still tinged with dust from the departing alien ships. The humans stood on the cracked ground, their chests heaving with exertion. The sun, pale but warm, cast long shadows across the broken structures. Elias looked over his people, seeing their faces, the fear, the exhaustion, and above all, the determination. They had survived their first test, and though they were weak from long sleep, their spirits had not faltered. Mara stepped beside him, scanning the horizon. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. We have won this battle, she said, her voice calm but firm. But the galaxy is still dangerous. We are not safe here. Elias nodded, his gaze fixed on the distant stars. We knew that. We have awakened, and now we must find a place in this universe. We cannot remain hidden forever. Humanity has survived before. We will survive again. Cyril and Kevik observed silently, awe and concern written across their faces. The aliens had come seeking knowledge and salvage. But what they had found was something far greater. A species that had survived impossible odds and now stood ready to reclaim its place in the stars. Cyril spoke softly. They are more than I imagined. I thought awakening them would be dangerous, but I did not realize. Their courage, their unity. It is extraordinary. Kevik shook his head, still pale but filled with reluctant admiration. I cannot believe it. Even after centuries of sleep, they fight as if the galaxy belongs to them. I underestimated them. Elias approached the two aliens. His steps were steady, his voice firm even though his throat was still raw from centuries of silence. He spoke slowly, using gestures to bridge the gap between their languages. Cyril understood enough to interpret. Elias wanted to communicate trust and understanding. Cyril nodded, translating for Kevik. He says, we helped them survive today. They wish to know if we will stay and guide them or if we will leave them alone. Kevik looked at him, worry etched into his features. If we stay, we risk our own safety. The Empire may see this as interference. If we leave, they could be discovered, or worse. Cyril considered for a moment. Then he shook his head. We cannot leave. They are not just survivors, they are the future. Humanity has endured centuries of silence. If we abandon them now, their potential could be lost. The humans, hearing the translation, nodded subtly. Elias stepped forward, his eyes meeting Cyril's. Though their languages were different, understanding passed through gestures, expressions, and trust. Mara, standing behind him, adjusted her stance, ready to protect her people if needed. The group moved back into the ruins. The vault, once a prison, had become a center of planning. Elias and Mara inspected the remaining pods. Thousands of humans still slept, preserved for centuries. Cyril's device could maintain their awakening, but the process would take time. Each human would need guidance, acclimation, and care to survive in a galaxy that had moved on without them. Cyril explained the device to Elias. It will allow you to awaken your people gradually. You must be patient. They cannot all awaken at once. Elias's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. He understood the challenge. Each person was a survivor, and awakening too many too fast could lead to chaos. He gestured to Mara, who nodded in agreement. Together they began organizing their plan. Meanwhile, Kevik paced uneasy. Even if they awaken safely, he muttered, the galaxy does not wait. Others will come. They will not be welcomed. Zyral's gaze was fixed on the distant stars. Perhaps, he said, but humanity has survived before against impossible odds. I have faith they can survive again. As days passed, the humans adjusted. They learned to walk without assistance, to use the remnants of technology around them, and to communicate with one another in their ancient tongue. Elias and Mara taught their people to move as a unit, to watch each other's backs and to think strategically. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing hour. Zyril and Kevek assisted as best they could, explaining the alien technology, showing how to repair energy generators, and teaching the humans how to navigate the ruined landscape. Though the humans struggled at first, their quick learning amazed the aliens. Each human adapted faster than Zyril could have imagined. Weeks passed, and the first large-scale awakening began. Pod after pod opened, and humans stepped into a world they barely recognized. Some wept quietly, mourning the lost Earth. Others stood with determination, ready to face the new galaxy. Elias and Mara guided them, their leadership unquestioned. Then came the first test. A scout vessel from a nearby star system appeared on the horizon, drawn by the energy signature of the vault. The humans had no advanced weapons, only the knowledge they had regained. Elias and Mara gathered their people, their voices calm but commanding. Zyril whispered to Kevek, "They have not forgotten how to fight. They will hold their ground." The scout vessel landed cautiously, and a group of aliens emerged, curious and cautious. They saw the humans, and for a moment there was silence. Then Elias stepped forward. He raised his hands, signaling peace, and spoke in his ancient tongue, offering communication and understanding. The aliens, wary but intrigued, paused. Mara gestured toward the vault, indicating the humans' origins and awakening. Slowly, the aliens realized these were no ordinary survivors. They were an entire species, awakened from centuries of cryo-sleep, standing together with strength and intelligence. Zyril and Kevek watched as the humans demonstrated their unity, their courage, and their quick thinking. The aliens stepped back, unsure how to respond to a species they had never truly known. Elias turned to Mara, nodding once. Together, they addressed their people, speaking of survival, exploration, and the promise of a new beginning. Each human felt the weight of their ancestors' history, the responsibility of their awakening, and the strength of their unity. Zyril whispered, almost in awe, "The galaxy does not yet know what it has lost. Humanity will rise, and they will change everything." Kevek remained silent, watching as humans began exploring the surrounding lands, reclaiming what they could, and preparing for the future. Though exhausted from centuries of sleep, they moved with purpose, each step a declaration of life, courage, and resilience. Days turned to weeks, and the humans grew stronger. They repaired old systems, scavenged parts from the ruins, and prepared for the journey beyond their forgotten world. Elias and Mara's leadership guided them, while Zyril and Kevek offered knowledge and advice. Finally, the day came when the humans would leave their old home. Ships were repaired and powered, and humans boarded with determination in their eyes. Elias stood at the front, Mara beside him, and the rest of their people ready to step into the stars. Zyril watched as the humans lifted off, their ships rising into the sky. "They have proven themselves," he said softly. "They are not just survivors. They are humanity reborn." Kevek nodded slowly. "I never imagined it. They are extraordinary. They have risen from sleep to face the galaxy, and nothing can stop them now." Elias looked out of the cockpit of the lead ship, eyes on the stars. Behind him, Mara and the rest of the humans prepared for the journey. Though their world was in ruins, their spirit was unbroken. They were awake, alive, and ready to reclaim their place in the universe. Zyril and Kevek followed them from the vault, watching silently. They had been part of something greater than they ever expected, a species reborn, a civilization rising from the ashes, and a future filled with hope and courage. As the fleet of human ships disappeared into the stars, a quiet wind swept through the ruins. The planet, once a tomb of forgotten dreams, now held the promise of new beginnings. Humanity had returned, and across the galaxy whispers began. Whispers of a long-forgotten species that had awakened, a species that had faced impossible odds and survived, a species whose courage, unity, and intelligence would forever change the balance of power in the stars. Elias and Mara stood at the helm of the lead ship, their eyes on the horizon. Behind them, their people prepared to step into a universe that had moved on without them. Ahead, countless stars awaited, and humanity, reborn from centuries of sleep, would rise to meet them. The galaxy would never be the same.